All right. Hello again, adventurers, and welcome to another exciting episode of D&D Deep Dive, the show where we dive deep into classes, subclasses, and other features of 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons to help you get the most out of your choices. So, today, we are going into the world of the wizard. Yes, we are going to cover the new order of scribes from Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, and talk about the optional class features, which are really limited. So I figured we could just put those both into one video. So, to kind of remind us how a wizard works, we've mentioned this many times before, but 5th edition class design has every single class playing very differently right from the get-go. And the things that make the class play differently, we call those the defining features, should show up in the first two levels. Wizards, their defining features is they cast spells. And that may sound like a cop-out, because there are a lot of spellcasting classes, but wizards are really built to not just cast spells, but cast lots of spells. They have a spellbook, so they're actually the only class that can actually learn more spells by finding them on spell scrolls, or finding other wizards as spell books, or letting a wizard copy a spell out of your spell book, or them letting it copy out of theirs. So they theoretically they are the only arcane class that could have access to their entire spell list by having it all copied into their spell book. In addition to that, they get what's called arcane recovery, which allows them to get back spell slots on a short rest. They can get back, I think it's up to half their level worth of spells. So like a 6th level wizard would be able to get 3 levels of spells back. So that could be 3 first level spells, a 2nd level and a first or spell slots, I mean. So it'd be 3 first level spell slots, a 2nd and a first level spell slot, or a single 3rd level spell slot. They can only do that once per long rest during a short rest, but it still means they can cast more spells than any other class. So the optional class features for the wizard are really kind of boring, to be perfectly honest. The first optional fast class feature is additional wizard spells, which are almost entirely the new spells that you find in Tasha's guide. So not a huge difference there. It simply gives them the ability to cast these into new spells. They do add a couple spells that are not in the book. Augury, enhance ability, speak with dead, and divination are the only ones that are not in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. But other than that, they get access to the new spells. Not really that amazing. The other optional feature they get is called cantrip formulas, which is effectively whenever you finish a long rest and consult your spell book, because you have arcane formulas in the spell book that you can use to formulate cantrips. You can replace one wizard cantrip with another wizard cantrip from the wizard's spell list. Effectively, anytime you finish a long rest, you can switch out a single wizard cantrip, which again just fits into the idea that wizards are just hyper customizable as far as the spells are concerned. Cantrips up until now were the one thing that were kind of one and done for wizards. If you didn't learn a cantrip, you couldn't learn it a little later, because cantrips are not written in your spell book. They're magic spells that you are so familiar with that you can just cast them and have them automatically memorized. So this gives you the ability to switch out cantrips anytime you have a long rest. So this isn't even like they've been having quite a few features show up in Tasha's, where when you can pick up a new feat, you can exchange this is something, but that's only once every 4-ish levels, or there's a couple classes that you can change things when you level up. But this is literally every long rest. So really kind of fits into that idea of the wizard being this hyper customizable class. So those are the optional features. They're useful. I like the cantrip formulas. Again, I think it just fits with the wizard. It makes them feel even more special. Because like warlocks and sorcerers, who are also arcane spellcasters, don't get to choose new cantrips. Literally, no other class gets to choose new cantrips. So I like it. I think it's interesting. So let's go to the order of the Scribes. Now, Tasha's Cauldron of Everything does have a reprint of the Bladesinger class, which is great. I love the Bladesinger, but we've already covered the few changes that happened to the Bladesinger between the Sword Coast Adventures Guide version and this, so I don't really feel the need to do another video on the Bladesinger, because my last video covers just about everything but pretty accurately. And then the errata video covers everything else. So yeah, let's go to the order of the Scribes. Order of the Scribes is interesting. Because this is effectively bookworm wizards, and wizards are already bookworms. So these are the bookiest worms of the bookworms. And I just love the kind of lore behind this, and the flavor of this class. You know, someone that is so into books that they actually, their best friend is a book, and all these cool things. So yeah, it's interesting. At this is second level when you to take this class, because wizards get their subclass, which is called an arcane tradition, at level 2, and at level 2 for this class, you get Wizardly Quill. As a bonus action, you can magically create a tiny quill in your free hand. And it has the following properties. It doesn't require ink. And when you write with it, it produces ink in a color of your choosing on the writing surface. So whatever color you want, you can write in it. The time you must spend to copy a spellbook into your spellbook, or a spell into your spellbook, equals 2 minutes per spell level if you use the quill for transcription. And you can erase anything you write with the quill if you wave the feather over the text as a bonus action, provided the text is within 5 feet of you. So a lot of this is flavor, but there's one thing that's really a big deal, and that is the time it takes to copy a spell. Generally, copying a spell takes normally an hour per spell level, and then as a wizard, if your arcane tradition is one of these schools of magic, generally you can copy those spells faster and cheaper. This is faster than literally any other wizard's subclass. 2 minutes instead of an hour is massive. Even like if you're an evocation wizard, it's still going to take you half an hour per spell level. So this means you can copy a 9th level spell in 18 minutes instead of 9 hours. That is massive. Now, it doesn't change the costs, so it's still going to be a money sink for you. But this means if you're in a situation where you don't have a lot of time, like a wizard couldn't sneak into another wizard's sanctum and copy a spell down. It would take far too long and cause too much noise, as they would have to experiment. But a order of scribes can. It only takes 2 minutes. So that is a game changer for wizards, and that means you can play this wizard very, very differently than most. If you can find other wizards and you can find their spell books, this would actually make a really interesting kind of espionage kind of wizard. Because you could sneak in places, copy spells from spellbooks really, really quickly, and then get out, nobody being the wiser. You could copy half a spellbook in a night. So yeah, I really like that. I like all the flavor stuff for it as well. Just because it's cool to be able to just go shing, purple ink, green ink, black ink, mauve ink. I think that stuff is cool, and then you can erase it. So the other thing you get at second level is called Awakened Spellbook. Your spellbook is not just a spellbook now; it is an awakened spellbook. It has a soul. And that changes things. First, you can use the book as a spellcasting focus, which is actually kind of interesting because one of the tips that is given to wizards is you really shouldn't have your spellbook on you if you don't need to during an adventuring day. Obviously, you want it wherever you're going to sleep because that's how you prepare spells in the morning. But if you can find a way to kind of hide it in an inn or something like that during the day, that's for the best, because if your spellbook is destroyed, you lose all the spells in it. And you can recopy the spells that you have memorized on that day, but any spells you don't have memorized and prepared on that day, you lose access to. The Awakens spellbook, because it's now can act as a spellcasting focus, it actually gives you an incentive to have your spellbook with you at all times. And I do kind of like the visual of a wizard opening up a spellbook and then casting directly from the spellbook. I just think it looks cool. Another thing, when you're using your Awakened spellbook, when you cast a wizard spell with a spell slot, so not cantrips, you can temporarily replace its damage type with a type that appears in another spell in your spellbook, which magically alters the spell's formula for this casting only. The latter spell must be of the same level as the spell slot you spend. This is really, really big. The ability to sculpt your spells and change the damage type changes things massively. It effectively means you can get around any resistance you want. It also means when you're looking to learn new spells, sometimes it will be in your best interest to choose a spell that maybe you don't think you're ever going to use, but it has a different damage type. And therefore, that gives you something else that you can churn your spells into when you're dealing with damages or resistances or weaknesses. So the ability to cast a force-based fireball or maybe a cold-based lightning bolt, I think is really, really interesting. And I think will definitely, again, be something that really makes this a hyper customizable wizard, even compared to most wizards when they are relatively customizable with all the spells they have. And then the last thing, when you cast a wizard spell as a ritual, you can use the spell's normal casting time rather than adding 10 minutes to it. And then once you use this benefit, you can't do so again until you finish a long rest. That's another big game changer. Again, we've talked about how wizards can cast more spells than any other class. Well, this particular flavor of wizard can cast one more spell. It is limited to spells that have the ritual tag. but that means you can cast a ritual spell. Normally, the rules for casting a ritual is it takes 10 minutes longer than normal, but it doesn't use a spell slot, and you don't actually have to have that spell prepared. It just needs to be in your spell book. That's a unique thing about how wizards cast rituals. This effectively means any ritual spell you have in your spell book, you theoretically can cast in combat if it's normally a spell that could be cast in combat for free. Now, you can only do that once per day, but again, that massively changes how you can play your wizard. You may start actively looking out spells with ritual tags because you can cast them when other people can't, which is really interesting and really useful. So overall, Awakened Spellbook I think is so cool, so interesting. None of it feels overpowered, but it gives you choices, which is what all these classes should do. Is they should give you choices. The other thing that's kind of unique about the Awakened Spellbook versus normal, is you can replace the book over the course of a short rest by using your wizardly Quill to write arcane sigils in a blank book or a magic spellbook to which you are attuned. At the end of the rest, your spellbook's consciousness is summoned into the new book, which the consciousness transforms into your spellbook along with all its spells. If the previous book existed somewhere, all the spells vanish from its pages. So this is another thing I mentioned before. If you lose your spellbook, wizards are kind of screwed. It means that you've lost all of these spells, and you're going to have to make a new spellbook, which requires parchment. It requires gold, and it requires a crap ton of time. With the Awakened Spellbook, if you lose it, if you misplace it, anything aside from the spellbook itself being completely and utterly obliterated, you can just make a new one on a short rest. It does not list a cost for it, so it's literally just get another book, do your arcane sigils, and then it's there. Not only that, but your old spellbook becomes worthless. So if someone stole your spellbook, you can just go, okay, make a new spellbook, and then when they try and use your spellbook, maybe to learn new spells, maybe they're going to sell it to a wizard, they've got a really nice blank book. Which I absolutely adore it. Again, this wizard can be played so differently than other wizards, and that's what I love so much about it. And in situations that normally your wizard would be a little hamstring, like maybe you're captured and they take away your spellbook. Well, you still have access to the spells you have memorized, but you have no access to the majority of your spells. Order Scribes wizard, they just need access to a journal, and they can recreate their spellbook in their cage and get out, cause widespread destruction. Like I said, there's just so many uses for the ability to just magically transfer all your spells to a new book over a short rest that I cannot speak highly enough of it. At 6th level, you get what's called Manifest Mind. Effectively, as a bonus action, while the book is on your person, so you do need to have it, you can cause the mind to manifest itself as a tiny spectral object hovering in an unoccupied space of your choice within 60 feet. It's intangible, it doesn't occupy its space, and it sheds dim light in a 10-foot radius, and it can look like a ghostly tome, a cascade of text, or a scholar from the past. So it can be a face, a book, or words. The spectral mind can hear and see. It has dark vision up to 60 feet, and it can telepathically share with you what it sees and hears. No action required. If you cast a wizard's spell on your turn, you can cast it from the Manifest Mind's space. and you can do that a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, getting all uses back when you finish a long rest. As a bonus action, you can make it move up to 30 feet, and it can pass through creatures but not objects. And then the Spectral Mind will stop manifesting if it ever gets more than 350 feet away, if someone casts Dispel Magic on it, if the Awakened Spellbook is destroyed, if you die, or if you dismiss the Spectral Mind as a bonus action. And then once you conjure the mind, you can't do so again until you finish a long rest, or if you burn a spell slot of any level to bring it back. Manifest Mind effectively is a special kind of familiar, which is great. Familiars can be super, super useful. I will say I have a player that uses familiars in my campaign, and I've had to really, really brush up on how familiars work, but because there are very specific limits to what you can do with a familiar, and not just this player, but a lot of players that decide to use the Find Familiar spell will push as much as they can to get the most use out of their familiar. At least that's what I've found in general. So learning what it can and can't do is really useful. Learning where its telepathic abilities begin and end and all that stuff is all very, very useful. But a familiar is just a useful creature, especially since with this, because it's intangible and doesn't occupy a space, it can't die if it gets attacked. Most familiars are physical beings. If it gets caught in a fireball or something, generally they're going to die. But this doesn't. So you can use it to keep your wizard safe. You can send the manifest mind out there. Use its have it telepathically tell you all the stuff it's seeing and hearing. And yeah, you can effectively just hide your wizard behind a wall while you cast spells from the Manifest Mind space. Now, you are limited to how many spells you can cast from that, but for certain situations where you don't want to put your wizard in harm's way, it's really, really nice. So yeah, another thing that I absolutely love. At 10th level, you get Master Scrivener, which I had to look up how to pronounce. This is Scrivener. You actually get the ability to create a new kind of item that they call a magic scroll. Now, when you hear that, you may be thinking, oh, well, magic scrolls are already a thing. Wizards can use them to copy spells into their spellbooks. No, that is a spell scroll. This magic scroll is different. When you finish a long rest, you can create one magic scroll by touching your wizardly quill to a blank piece of paper or parchment and causing one spell from your awakened spellbook to be copied onto this as a scroll. The spellbook must be within 5 feet of you when you make this as a scroll. The chosen spell must be of first or second level and have a casting time of 1 action. And once in the scroll, the spell's power is enhanced, counting as 1 level higher than normal. So a level 2 spell would actually count as a level 3 spell once you write it down. You can cast the spell from the scroll by reading it as an action. The scroll is unintelligible to anyone else, and the spell vanishes from the scroll when you cast it or when you finish your next long rest. In addition to that, you're adept at crafting spell scrolls, which are described in the treasure chapter of the Dungeon Master's Guide. So there are rules on how to create spell scrolls, how much they cost, all that stuff like that. The gold and time you must spend to make a spell scroll are halved if you use your wizardly quill. So this is kind of a big deal because this gives the wizard yet another free spell effectively. Every day when you finish your long rest, when you wake up in the morning, you get to pick one spell that you're going to get to cast for free. And it's going to be a level higher than it normally would be. So like Melf's Acid Arrow, which I believe is a second level spell, would count as if you were casting at one spell level higher, and it doesn't use a spell slot for you to cast it. So even more spell casting than your average wizard, which already gets Arcane Recovery to get more spells. This wizard is really built around the idea of I'm going to cast lots and lots of spells. And yeah, like I said, this gives you choices. Because it's only one per day, it's not going to be super overpowered or anything, because one extra spell slot is never going to completely destroy a campaign or anything like that, but it does give you a distinct advantage. The other thing I like about it is you have to choose which spell you're copying when you finish the long rest. So there is a little bit of strategy involved in, okay, what are we doing today? What do I think would be the most useful spell for me? Do I want to make a magic scroll of a spell I already have prepared just to have an additional casting of it? Do I want to do it of a spell that I don't have prepared so I have that one use of it in case I do need it? Like, it really adds a lot of strategy to your spell choice. And again, I love it. I think it's really interesting and cool. All right. Finally, at 14th level, you get one with the word. Which gives you a couple benefits. While the book is on your person, you have advantage on all intelligence arcana checks, as the spell book helps you remember magical lore. That's good. Wizards make a lot of arcana checks just because they're wizards. Moreover, if you take damage while your spellbook's mind is manifested, you can prevent all of that damage to you by using your reaction to dismiss the spectral mind, using its magic to save yourself. Then roll 3d6. The spellbook temporarily loses the spells of your choice that have a combined spell level equal to that roll or higher. For example, if the roll's total is 9, spells vanish from the book that have a combined level of at least 9, which could be 1 9th level spell, a 6 1/3, 3 3rd level spells. If there aren't enough spells in the book to cover this cost, you drop this as 0 hit points. Now, until you finish 1d6 long rest, you are incapable of casting the lost spells, even if you find them on a scroll or in another spell book. And after you finish the required number of rests, the spells reappear in your spellbook, and you can only do this once per long rest. This is really interesting. Because on one side, this is a get out of damage free card. It doesn't matter what the spell is. It doesn't matter how much damage it is, anything. You just nullify the damage completely. From an action economy standpoint, that's a really big deal, because you are effectively not just taking away an action from the enemy, but if you use this at the right points, you could be taking away a 7th, 8th, or 9th level spell from the enemy, because you can just go, no, I'm not going to let that affect me. Now, the fact that you can lose up to 12 levels worth of spells and they won't come back for days means this needs to be a well thought out choice. This is not an ability I see players making every day or anything like that. Especially if you start stacking the spells that get lost. Like, you do it one day, you roll your d6, and you find out you won't get those spells back for 3 days. Well, then the next day you need to use it again. Those spells aren't going to be back for another 5 days. Next day after that, you do it again. Those spells aren't going to be back for another 4 days. That means at that point, you now could have up to 36 spells you can't cast. This could massively cripple your wizard But if it's the difference between taking a disintegrate and losing the character and losing a bunch of spells for a few days, let's go with the lose a bunch of spells for a few days, because it sucks to have your character disintegrated. Yeah. So final thoughts. I really like this as a subclass. I think it's interesting. It lets you play a wizard very, very differently. I love the tiny Quill. I think from a role playing perspective, the ability to just go and write notes is just a really fun role playing opportunity. If you wanted to play that kind of stereotypical, not good with social cues kind of intellectual, you could have a lot of fun with this. We're in the middle of a conversation while someone's talking to them. They go, yeah, yep, and they're writing stuff. Are you even listening? Of course I am. I'm taking notes. You know, the things like that. Like, it could be a really fun character to play. Or if you wanted to go the exact opposite route from, you know, instead of the hyper studious, you could just be like I was in high school and in college, where I can speed read, and before my memory got turned to Swiss cheese from medication, I had a really good memory. So very rarely did I actually have to quote unquote read the books. I would glance through them because I could speed read. I would get most of what I needed through, you know, maybe 5 to 10 minutes per chapter, and I could just go boom. Okay, I'm done. You could have a wizard like that, where they're just really good. They've got one of those minds. And so instead of going, I'm taking notes, it could be, oh no, yeah, totally. There's one ball and the hair. And just have them be, you know, one of those people that I really don't care. I am much more interested in my doodles than I am in your verbal diarrhea. So yeah, like, there's a lot of different ways you could play this character. All of them could be a lot of fun and interesting. The Awakened Spellbook, I think, is really cool and a game changer. Manifest Mind just gives you a very unique kind of familiar, and familiars are always just as useful. Master Scrivener is fun. And again, adds a whole new level of strategy to what spells you prepare in the morning. And then one with the word is going to be very rarely used. But when it's used, it's going to be a very big deal. So yeah. That is going to be all for me today. As always, if you enjoyed this, please hit that like button. It lets me know that you liked it. It lets YouTube know that you liked it. And if enough people tell YouTube that they liked it, YouTube may allow other people to see it. Which is really important for me. In addition to that, hit the subscribe button. This week, I have to think. I am putting out 12 videos. This is my 11th video this week. I need help. But yeah, I'm putting out a lot of content. If you hit this subscribe button, it goes directly to your subscription box. You don't have to visit my channel every time you want to see all my awesome stuff. In addition, hit the bell icon to turn on the notifications. Every so often, I put out videos at a weird time, because that's how my mental health works. I don't always get to choose when I release videos, because sometimes I just can't get to creating them when I need to release them on at a time. So the bell icon will give you a notification whenever I upload one, so you never miss any of my videos. In the comments down below, what would you name your spellbook? That's it. If it's going to be an awakened mind, I think it deserves a name. And I'm interested to know what you guys would name it. Are you going to go the old Jarvis? Are you going to go with a nonsense name? Mr. Poofers or anything like that? I would love to know in the comments below. Otherwise, again, that is all for me today, and I will see you guys next time. All right? Bye-bye.